Hi and welcome. I'm Mary Jo, also known as Sojo, and this is my completed quilt trunk show. Now, I promised I was going to do this a while back when I started doing my 200 plus question mark quilt top series. So here we go. We are going to get started doing this trunk show. Now, I plan on doing 10 at a time. I have no idea how many parts that I'm going to have because I don't know how many finished quilts I actually have. But I plan on doing 10 or so at a time until we get through. I will also be showing what I'm going to call some bonus projects along the way, like some pillows or some jelly roll rug along the way as well. Okay, so here we go. This is number 1, and this was called The Woodland Sunset, and it was from a book called Seemingly Scrappy by Rebecca Silball. Now, let's flip it over and we'll talk about the back. Now, on the back, I had just used a brown fleece with no batting, and then I just did stitch in the ditch on my domestic machine. Now, these quilts are not in any specific order, just where they were located in my house. Basically, however, I will say most of them that are in this part 1 are pretty older quilts. Now, when I say older, I've only been quilting for 10 years, so it'd be closer to the 10-year mark than recent. Now, number 2. This is a Bargello style quilt that I had a tutorial from Eleanor Burns that I had done. And it was quilted with just a loopy line on my domestic machine. And this is just the back of the quilt with those loopy lines in it. So these quilts that are in part 1 are quilts that have been in my family room. And they're definitely been well used, well loved, and washed. So they all definitely have that cranky look going on for them. This is number 3. This quilt pattern, I do not remember the name of it. I know I got it in a quilt magazine somewhere. And it does have fleece for the backing as well. And it was stitched in the ditch. We'll take a look at it and flip it over. And there is the fleece backing with no batting. And it was stitched in the ditch on my domestic. This is number 4. And the name of this quilt is called Small Town Girl. And it was from a book, Seemingly Scrappy, from Rebecca Silball. And it was quilted by my domestic machine. And it has like a large stippling all over it. I'll flip it over and see if we can look at the back. And this is just the back of that quilt. This is number 5. Now, I don't remember where this pattern came from. But it was quilted in a large stippling on my domestic. We'll take a look at the back. And that's the back of number 5. This is number 6, which is the Lodgepole Pine quilt from Eleanor Burns. And I backed it again with fleece and no batting. And it was stitched in the ditch. We'll take a look at the back. And this is the backing with that stitched in the ditch on my domestic. Now this is the spiderweb quilt from Eleanor Burns' quilt book, Day and Night Quilt. I was actually making that quilt with different fabrics And the cut off pieces had you make this and another piece as bonus projects. When I was doing that, my husband saw this and told me it looked like the symbol for the Umbrella Academy, which I'm not exactly sure what that is. It has something to do with superhero action movies, something along that lines. So, and he told me it was in red and white and black and looked it up. So I made this quilt because of that, because my husband likes those superhero movies. But when I did it, I went and I got the cheapest fabric I could get at Joann's. I made it. I washed it without color catchers, and now the white is all pink. So that's the story behind that one. Now this was quilted with a loopy line design on my domestic. We'll take a look at the back. And this is the back of the number 7 spiderweb quilt. This is number 8, and this was a panel that I then used the attic window tutorial from Missouri Star and made this quilt. And it was stitched in the ditch on my domestic. We'll take a look at the back. And that's the back of number 8. And this is what I'm calling a bonus project. Those pillows were actually from a Creative Notion subscription. And I think it came with enough stuff to make 2, but I used some of my stuff from my own stash and made all 6. Those pillows are quilted with a crosshatch quilt before turning into a pillow. And this is number 9. Now, I previously had featured this on one of my weekly updates, but this is my Winter Wonderland quilt by Meg Hawkey from Crabapple Hill Studios. And the center of that is all hand embroidered, and then the borders around it is all pieced. And it was quilted with a snowflake pantograph on the long arm. Let's take a look at the back. And that is the back, but it's kind of hard to see the snowflakes from back here. But that was quilted with metallic thread as well. And this is number 10. This was also featured on the weekly update. And this is called Snow in June by the quilt book Seemingly Scrappy by Rebecca Silball. And it was just stitched in the ditch. Let's turn it over and take a look at the back. And there's the back where it was just stitched in the ditch on my domestic. Okay, so that's the end of part 1. Be sure to leave in the comments down below which one you liked, which number. And then join me next time. We'll go through 10-ish more quilts on part 2. Bye!